Hey, I'm Shaye Warner, and you are listening to the Casual Cattle Conversations podcast. Whether you're a seasoned rancher or just curious about the cattle world, this podcast dives into the stories, science, and strategies shaping the future of ranching. Let's get started and keep your herd ahead of the herd. Folks, today we are visiting with Brittany Kelsey, who is a cattle industry professional, wife, and mom to 3 very active boys. She's deeply rooted in agriculture and ranch life. She was raised in a Missouri cattle family. She understands firsthand the daily challenges producers face. But today, Brittany leads a remote team at CattleTags.com, working to provide practical, reliable solutions for ranchers just like her own family. She brings a rancher's perspective to her work, focusing on efficiency, herd management, and supporting operations built to last for generations. Brittany and I really dive into all the different aspects of what goes into that animal identification system, what tags are going to work best for ranchers, and we also dive into EIDs, etc. So it's a very thorough conversation about a topic that really makes an impact on the efficiency of your operation, collecting that data, and ultimately always goes back to profitability because of improved management. But with that, let's visit with Brittany. All right, Brittany, welcome to the podcast. It is a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So to get things started, we're going to be talking a lot about animal identification systems for ranchers. So from your perspective, why is it so important that ranchers have an ID system that works for their ranch?
One of the biggest things that we see with our customers is you can't manage an animal if you don't have them identified. So the biggest scope and the goal for our producers is better management, record keeping, and how are you best able to do that if you don't have a solid identification system in place for your cows, calves that belong to those cows, something that you can easily look at and know, hey, I know, what year that animal was born based on their tag number or whatever identification system you're using. So I think just that good ID system is really a foundation for a good record keeping system all the way to the top.
Absolutely. And as we've talked about on the show a lot before and even touched on with Terrell from your team a few weeks ago, it's that those good herd records really impact profitability too. So the ID system is a big part of that.
For sure. Yeah. And it's something that a lot of people wouldn't think, oh yeah, that's really something I need to nail down before I start managing my herd better. But really, it's a good foundation for everyone to start and to stick with.
Okay. So let's start with the tag itself and choosing the right tag, because there's a lot of different tags out there for ranchers to consider.
There are, and a lot of ranchers don't realize the possibilities that they can have with their tags. So the first thing that we usually visit with our customers about is the size of tag or the animal that they're going to be putting them in. So whether you're tagging calves that are then getting a new tag later on in life, or if you're just tagging mature animals, cows, bulls, that kind of thing. So like a large tag would be like a calf size up to our Maxi and to our super Maxi tag sizes for the larger animals. Another thing that is a big consideration is the color of the tag. We have several different colors that are available from our feedlot tags, which are a short-term tag, into our more permanent tags. And so picking a color that is easily readable in the field, if that's what you're doing, wanting to be able to read the tags from a distance, and then something that corresponds with your operation sometimes. So we do have a lot of producers that might pick blue tags for all their bull calves when they're born, pink tags for all their heifer calves when they're born. It's just an easy system for that specific operation. And so the size and the color, there's a lot of different variables there that you can make work for your operation.
What about like laser engraved tags versus ones where we're using tag markers?
For sure, yeah. So One unique thing about Allflex tags are that they are laser engraved and then inked over. And so those tags are guaranteed to be readable for the life of the animal, which is something really, really great. And we like letting our customers know that, and they appreciate that. A lot of producers for several years have been using, blank tags with a marker, which is fine, if it's a short-term use for calves that are getting a new tag when they're mature, or a short-term feeder program, but the markers fade. There's no good system to keep them on for the life of the animal. And so when you're looking at tagging something more permanent, we really like the Allflex tags that feature that laser engraving, which are all of the 2-piece tags and the 1-piece tag, with the exception of the feedlot tags. The feedlot tags are inked only. They are a lighter weight tag that are meant for just more short-term use. Obviously, the price reflects that with those feedlot options, but they are not laser engraved. But yeah, that's a great point, that it gives you the flexibility for longer use. Another thing with that is the options for all the layouts. So there are hundreds of layouts through Allflex. And the easiest way that I try to talk a producer through it when we first get started is, what kind of information is important for you to have on the tag? Is it your phone number in case the cattle get out and somebody needs to call you? Is it your brand? Maybe a birth date or a sire information? And so there's all kinds of layouts that feature not just the management code, but also lines of text where you can feature any pertinent information that you want to on that tag.
All right. Now, you brought up 2-piece versus 1-piece briefly. Do you want to talk about why some producers prefer one over the other? I know I've used both, and I like a 2-piece tag, but do you want to talk about why some producers prefer one over the other, or just dive into that?
Yeah, for sure. And I don't feel like I maybe have a good answer as far as why some choose one over the other. I feel like it's more personal preference and what you have had good luck with on your operation as far as retention of tags and cows, not losing them. I would say some people like the 1-piece tag better for the fact that it is one item and they're not keeping track of a tag and a button back. But I would say that the actual retention is better with the 2-piece tags. For the most part, that is what producers, our feedback they are giving us is that they like the 2-piece tags better for longer retention.
Okay, Brittany, so we've talked a lot about picking the right tag and all the different options that are available. Well, maybe not all, but a lot of the different options, because like you said, there's such a variety of what people can choose from, whether it's a 1-piece or 2-piece, color, laser engrave, ink, as well as if they do other formatting like putting their brand or phone number and sire and dam, of course, on the tag. But I also want to move to talking about the identification system itself, not just the tag. So when we're talking about management codes, do you have any tips on how ranchers can pick the best numbering system for their operation? I know my grandpa used to use the alphabet system where, A, B, whatever letter it was meant whatever year it was. I grew up with, my parents and my husband and I currently, we utilize, what year was the animal born, and that's the first number of their tag, and there are other options in there. So I want to hear your perspective on how ranchers can find a management code system that works for them.
A lot of those systems are very similar to what you currently use or what you've used in the past. And this is a question that we get a lot, and I think something that our customers appreciate, that they can call somebody on the phone and say, hey, tell me your thoughts on this. Not every e-commerce company has somebody on the other end of the line that can firsthand relay that information. And so we are proud to help our customers pick a management code designation that works for their operations. So as you said, using the letter as the year designation, we'd have a lot of producers that use that. Our biggest thing that we try to keep our customers from doing is avoiding duplicates. And so, if you're retaining heifers at all in your operation, When you're tagging those calves to match their mom, you're going to need to re-tag that heifer. And so trying to avoid any duplicate tags, it just becomes a nightmare in your management system when you're doing that. Obviously, oh, we got 2 number 110s. Which one was that, I wonder? So that's just one of the big things to keep in mind. And then finding a system that when you first look at the tag, you want to be able to quickly say in your mind, oh, she's a 5-year-old. She was born in 2020 or whatever, if you're quickly sorting cattle in a pen through a chute system. So picking a system that isn't really complicated. We're into 2026. If you started them with a 2-6 within your management code numbers, if you started them with a 6 and you just mentally know she was born in 2026, there's so many different options that the customers can use. Another thing, like I had mentioned earlier, was the colors on the sex of the calves. So bulls blue, heifers pink. That's another way that the customers are using to kind of have just an extra designation in there for ease of sorting. But we have a lot of tips on numbering systems, and if you already have a numbering system in place and you are wanting to re-tag your animals, let's say that you use blank tags and you wrote on them with markers and they're faded and you can't read them anymore. We work with spreadsheets a lot as far as being able for customers to order their tags and reorder the numbers that they already have in their tagging system. So many times customers come to us and they're like, oh, wait, I don't really need numbers 1 to 100. I need 100 random numbers. We are happy to help do that, and you can also easily export those numbers on spreadsheets out of your CattleMax account or any other management software that you're using that can be easily used to print your tags.
Well, thank you for touching on that. And yes, duplicates in a computer system can be a nightmare because we know that this is the cow and this is the calf and maybe this is the replacement heifer, right, when we go out and see them, but the computer does not know that.
Correct. Yeah. And typically then when you're sitting at the computer later that night, you're thinking, oh, which one was that? At the time you might, right, when you look at her, which one it is, but it helps avoid a lot of problems down the road for sure.
So do you want to talk about the Maxi tags, what those are and how those can be used for heifers that are going to be retained?
Sure. So that was something we touched on a little earlier as far as a consideration what size of tag that you should be purchasing. And so our large size is what they are called. Those are actually our calf size tags. And so they are pretty small though in a mature animal. And so if you are keeping heifers to retain into your herd, a lot of times we recommend that customers purchase the Maxi tags. They go into a calf, so you're good, obviously with good practice of making sure that you're, got good placement of where the tag's going. But what's nice about them is their longevity, and then they can stay with that animal for their life. So it's a laser engraved ink tag. It's going to be readable for her entire life, and it's going to, be big enough as she grows. It's still going to be a good readable tag in her ear rather than a small, large tag. And so we encourage producers, and we don't want to sell you something you don't need, just buy large tags for you to cut it out and put another one in her as she, later on in life. So we just like to help producers consider that of, hey, if you're going to be keeping these heifers, you might consider putting a Maxi tag in them, and then just saves you some labor and costs down the road.
It does. I've done both where you give them the calf tag that matches their mother. And that's nice when you're out pairing stuff up because the numbers are big and you see it. But it is one more step to have to eventually renumber and retag down the road. One thing we haven't talked about with identification systems is EIDs. And especially those are becoming much more popular. And those obviously aren't going to be the tag that when you're out there looking at maybe which one needs to be treated or which heifer calves are standing out in the summer pasture, you're not going to be able to read that tag, but it does help a lot with management. So do you want to touch on some of the benefits of utilizing an electronic identification system?
The EID tags, we get a lot of questions about those, and it's not really a complicated system. It's just very unfamiliar for producers, and they haven't used them as much, so they're not as confident with it. And so one of the biggest benefits with EID tags is it reduces human error when you're recording your ear tag numbers. And so when you're processing several hundred head through a shoot in a day and you're just recording the visual ID tags, there's room for error for, punching in the wrong number, the wrong letter, whatever it be. And so that's one of the biggest benefits with these EID tags is it reduces that error, and it helps to contain all of your information within that EID number. A lot of states also have the EIDs for being USDA compliant. And so depending on what kind of market you're selling into, or if you're selling breeding stock, the requirement for these is there. And so we do sell a lot of those that require the premise ID number to go along with them. One thing that we get a lot of questions about is, oh, hey, I bought a bull from so-and-so and he has an EID tag. Can I scan that and see all of his life information? We wish that would be really cool if it could do that, but they don't. So all those EID tags do is just, they store that premise ID number that the bull would have originated from, but they don't actually store information. So that is one of the big misconceptions about that. And really it works whether you have 10 or 10,000, the chance for error is still there. And so that just really reduces it.
And those EIDs, you can get some that come in a matched set with the visual tags people are ordering, correct?
Correct, yeah. So that is something that's becoming very common, and also with our TSUs or the DNA sampling. And so we see it the most, I think, with producers tagging newborn calves, and they're going to start them out right with an EID tag and hit them with a TSU vial at that same time to get a DNA sample from them. And so matching all of those up of, okay, this is calf 2501, her TSU vial is labeled that way, her visual ID tag is labeled that way, and also it says 2501 on her EID tag. So it's just more checks along the way and making sure all of her information can easily stay together. We have a lot of producers that like that matched pair EID visual ID for the fact that if a cow were to ever lose her visual ID tag, they can look on that EID button and it tells them exactly right there without having to scan it who she was. So it's just another way for them to keep their records straight.
Okay. So that's the tag itself, but there's also a reader that producers need to go along with the tags, obviously, to read them and connect to their data platform, etc. So what should producers consider before they go and buy an EID reader and system? What do they need to be thinking about before they make that investment?
For sure, yeah. But purchasing the reader can really be a big decision. And I think the biggest thing to consider is what kind of information that on your operation you want to record. With Allflex, we have 3 different readers that go kind of from very basic to ones that are just a little bit more advanced. And so thinking about, am I just wanting to record those numbers and match them with a visual ID as those cows go through the chute and create a list? And then when I go into my management software system, I can, quickly do a group update using that list of numbers. Or we can even go into, some of our EID readers have the capability to scan barcodes, which is a really cool feature for producers that are using the TSU DNA samples. And so there's just a tiny little barcode on the end, and they scan them just like a grocery store scanner. And it allows them to easily connect that data, the visual ID, the EID, and the DNA barcode all together if they're not using a matched pair system like we spoke about earlier. So I think just, one thing to keep in mind is, they're very standard models that read the low frequency tags. Any low frequency tags that you're using, let's say you purchase a set of cows that have a different EID set of tags in them, your readers, your readers will still read those tags. So they're very universal across the ISO standard models. One thing that you might keep in mind is that there are some companies that sell their proprietary tags and readers that are not compatible with other ones. And so it's just a good idea to be sure and check before you buy to ensure that, what you're getting is a standard and that it can read a lot of different tags.
Okay. Now, as we kind of work towards wrapping up the conversation today, we've talked a lot about tags, identification systems, EID, but why should cattle producers consider CattleTags.com? We can go to any ranch supply store and pick up a set of tags or order from a variety of places, but why do producers like working with CattleTags.com?
This is probably one of the most favorite things that I enjoy about this job is getting to talk to ranchers and producers from all over the United States, really, and visit with them about their operation and be able to help them. And so I think that's something that producers don't always realize is, hey, I have another rancher on the end of the line here when they're talking to us on the phone. And I can, bounce questions off of them. They're going to give me true industry-related answers, not just something from Allflex's data book of what they're supposed to tell me. And so I think that's one of the most fun things about this job, and I think something that a lot of producers don't realize is the support that CattleTags.com offers and the little extra things we do as far as giving you your EID spreadsheets for easy importing into CattleMax and making all your spreadsheets for you with all your random numbers and reaching out anytime something just doesn't quite look right on your order. And so many times customers are like, oh, thank you so much for reaching out. I never would have caught that. We take a lot of pride in our ranchers helping ranchers and being able to help producers in ways maybe that we see have worked for other producers or worked for ourselves, and just really sticking together as an ag industry.
All right. Well, Brittany, as we wrap up today, my final question for you is, if producers take away one thing from this conversation, what do you want that to be?
Yeah, I think, Animal ID isn't just about tags or compliance. It's about building a system that supports better management, starting that foundation good so that you can be successful all the way to the top. And so I think sitting down and thinking through that, whether it's across the table with your family members that are in your operation with you, whether it's calling us at CattleTags.com and just bouncing some ideas or getting our input. I think just starting that foundation of a good identification system, and then you can build on it so much from there and expand as little or as much as you want that best fits your operation.
All right. Well, I will include a link to CattleTags.com in the description, so be sure to check that out after you are listening to this podcast. Brittany, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, folks, remember the best way to support this podcast and all your other favorite podcasts is to leave a rating or review, and better yet, share it with a friend who's going to find this information valuable, because podcasts still grow best by word of mouth. But with that, happy ranching, folks.